Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility. Together they make the Deathly Hallows. Together they make one Master of Death. The last will and testament of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We're covering Chapter 7, The Will of Albus Dumbledore. Mollie's with us.
Hello, everyone.
This is a big-time chapter. I think it's bigger than what either of us expected when we revisited it.
100%.
It's a bit long. I think it's like 26 pages or whatever, but there's so much jam-packed into this to dissect and pick through, so we will try our best.
Yeah. This is a big chapter. I forget how much are in these chapters so in this book.
I thought going in, prepping for this, I'd be like, okay, maybe 15, 20 pages, just get through the will and then that'll be it. But no. Yeah. No, we have a lot. We have a lot to discuss. We do have a shout out though. We have Chris, who left a comment on Deathly Hallows Chapter 5, Fallen Warrior. Very recent comment. And Chris says, at home, I sometimes listen to you while I practice my gymnastics. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
We're happy that you're listening to us while you're practicing gymnastics.
Yes, we are.
As long as you don't get hurt, stay safe.
Yes.
Don't let our weird takes distract you from whatever you're doing at the time. We also have another shout out from Mollie.
Yes. Yeah. From Chapter 1 on The Dark Lord Ascending. Elizabeth, I just have to say, your quote, I'm a sucker for water features. Pure gold.
Gotcha, didn't it?
Oh my gosh. Favorite quote from that whole entire episode. There were so many good things that were discussed on that episode, but that got me.
Gets it right there?
Yep.
Well, I'm sure Elizabeth will love to hear this.
Yes.
So, if you would like to leave a comment, please do so on Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, even our YouTube, which you can find all of those at Hogwarts a Pod. Also, participate in the polls that we have on Spotify. We always love going through those and seeing what the results are. I think there was a couple of interesting ones recently where, for example, should Harry have attacked Stan Shunpike or should he have laid up like he did? And it's 50-50.
Yeah.
That's interesting result right there.
I like it.
That's a cool result. So, participate in all of that and let us know what you're thinking of all of the stuff that Mollie and I are about to talk about in this massive chapter. But in this chapter, obviously we get the will of Albus Dumbledore told to us by one Rufus, the Minister of Magic. But before that, it's Harry's birthday.
It is.
And Harry begins his birthday by muttering in his sleep, as he does. Which, side note, and I'm going to start off this with a tangent right off the bat, but I thought about this as I was reading, Ron waking him up being like, dude, you were muttering in your sleep again. Wouldn't you hate to be like Neville or Dean and for 6 years you got to put up with a kid randomly muttering in his sleep, yelling in his sleep, having complete...
Yeah.
Do you ever write to McGonagall and be like, can I get a bed change? Can I get can I get moved? This would bother my sleep. You're expecting me to be up for class at 8 a.m.
And I have this kid that's muttering in his sleep all night. I wonder if there's some kind of charm you can place around the bed though.
I think they'd be dumb not to.
So that the students get good sleep-ish.
But then can you imagine, the Sirius Black thing and, something Sirius happens?
Yeah.
And, you're completely oblivious to said thing because you've now placed, like, the Muffliato charm around your bed or something. McGonagall, like, rushes in, like, what's going on? There's, like, some emergency happening, and they're just sound asleep.
Yeah.
But, anyway, I digress.
Already a tangent, Dan.
Already a tangent. We're 5 minutes in.
Yep.
So, Harry's muttering in his sleep. What is he muttering? Something about Gregorovitch. Ron thinks it's Dragomir Gorgovitch, who was recently acquired chaser for the Chudley Cannons, and he was recently acquired on a record fee. Mm-hmm. Speaking of record, he also holds the record for most quaffle drops in a season, which begs the question, if you're dropping so many quaffles, how did you get the record fee?
Right.
What are the Chudley Cannons doing? Let's get into the real specifics of Quidditch professional budgets and logistics, right, Molly? Because I know that's where you wanted to go here.
Absolutely.
I think we have a real problem with the Chudley Cannons and their direction, and I think we need to look at ownership.
You know, I was thinking about having him on my Quidditch Fantasy League team.
Where are you?
Yeah, but, I mean...
The drops were just...
The drops were too much.
Too much?
Yeah.
Anyway, it ultimately boils down to Harry thinking, where have I heard the name Gregorovitch? Because it was definitely Gregorovitch, not Gorgovitch. And we know the answer to this.
We sure do.
We know the answer to this. This is not a spoiler, because this is all the way back in Goblet of Fire, where Victor Crumb's wand was actually made by Gregorovitch, and Harry took note of it then, which is why we take note of it. He's like, who is Gregorovitch?
Yep.
It's their wand maker. Mm-hmm. So we know it. Harry hasn't caught up with his own memory yet, but that's what that is. Ron transitions it to Harry's birthday, which Harry immediately was like, oh yeah, I'm 17. Accio! And Wingardium Leviosa, as he's like moving stuff around the room and such, which he pokes himself in the eye with his own glasses.
Wouldn't you, if you were like, all of a sudden your your tracker was off and you were just like, yeah, I'm going to use magic, and just get so excited?
So the way the trace works, does the Ministry of Magic just get, like, I'm picturing like a radar screen, right? Mm-hmm. And then every underage magic is just a blip on the radar screen, you know, that they can then pinpoint?
Yeah.
Is Hogwarts just like a massive, constant blip?
I would assume so.
During the school year, where it's just like a big, large dot that's always there?
Yeah.
Or do they have like, you know what? We know that's happening. Let's just... Anyway. So, we get to Harry's gifts. Ron's gift is 12 fail-safe ways to charm witches. Fred and George gave him the copy. And...
Very Fred and George.
Very Fred and George. And Ron is saying to Harry, you know, it's not all about the wand work either. And I'm sorry, are they trying to say something here? We're for kids, so we're not going to go too far into this, but
I think it is.
Is there another little double meaning there?
I think that there is.
I think there's a double meaning that she's trying to put in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I might be reading too much into it.
No, I don't think that you are.
Okay, I think this is her adding in an adult joke.
Yes.
Very subtly.
Very subtly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'd had glimpses of Ron maybe using this in the last chapter, where he's trying to comfort Hermione and he's trying to compliment Hermione and all that kind of thing. So he's putting this to work. We should put something out there on our social medias.
Yeah. Being
like, what do you all think the 12 are?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously there are some easy ones like compliments and actually listening.
Right.
And comforting and things like that.
Right.
But what do you think the full 12 might be?
Ooh.
So we should put that out there. We want to hear from you guys as to what the others might be.
Absolutely.
But it's an interesting gift nonetheless that Ron gives. Mollie and Arthur's gift, a little bit more on the emotional side.
Know.
They give Harry a watch. It's a traditional gift to give at 17. Not only is it just a watch, Mollie apologizes because, it's a little banged up, it's used, it's not new like Ron's. And Harry, gives her this huge hug with a lot of unsaid words behind it, which we all know what that kind of hug feels like.
Yeah.
And, Mollie appreciates it and such, but it's Fabian's old watch. It's her brother's.
Yeah.
which that must be an emotional thing to give such a, what I perceive as a personal item, like really part of your family's history, and your brother who's not there anymore, that watch.
Yeah.
That's a really heavy gift to give, I think.
It is. No, and I think it's like, you know, Mollie, like, solidifying the fact that, like, Harry, you're a part of our family, and you always will be, and you're important enough that I'm going to give you this watch.
Yeah.
So I think it's perfect for Harry. Like, I think Harry wouldn't have, like, he would have accepted, obviously, graciously, like, the new watch, but I love the fact that it comes from her brother, and it's like a hand-me-down watch.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, just to think about how much that watch means to her, she held on to a beat-up watch for over a decade, you know? So,
yeah.
I mean, clearly it means a lot to her, and I'm glad that Harry recognizes both the sentiment as well as a lot of the unsaid things between both individuals, or all three, Mollie and Arthur and Harry, because I think you're right. I think they consider him family.
Yeah.
So, Hermione, continuing on with the gifts, we're going to go rapid fire with these. Hermione gave him a sneakoscope. Makes sense. Bill and Fleur gave him an enchanted razor, which is a really cool idea, which I really like. The Delacours, the family, the parents and Gabrielle, gave him chocolate. French chocolate. Can't be bad.
No.
And Fred and George gave Harry an enormous box of Wizard Wheezes products. Do you think Fred and George consulted Harry with, like, hey, what do you think from our shop might be beneficial to you? Or do you think they just know intuitively?
I think that they just know, or they want to just give him, like, some of the latest new things.
Some of the new tech?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Like, you're the first to experience this new wizard or Weasley wizard product.
I like the idea of Fred and George giving him not just novelty items, but, like, items that they know he can use.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they obviously have a fair amount at this point. They're doing quite well. So I'm sure they've put a lot of their profits into research and development of new stuff. But Hermione gathers all of this stuff, including Ron's underwear from the washer and dryer or whatever, and packs them all into what she's got. However, is it weird that she packs Ron's underwear? Like, oh, I'll put all of this away. Don't worry about it. I'm just waiting on your underwear to get out of the laundry. Is that a little weird?
It's a little weird. But at the same time, too, it's like, as a woman, as a girl, like, the minute you start talking, for me at least, the minute I find myself like, okay, this is the person I'm probably going to be with for the rest of my life, you know, that I'm attracted to. I want to impress them with my homeliness skills.
Right.
You know, so it's like the thought of, like, folding somebody else's laundry for them is kind of
just part of the give and take of a
like a relationship. Yeah. So I can see where it would, like, catch, like, a Ron off guard, and you're folding my underwear.
Well, one, they're not in a relationship.
Right.
And two, they're 17. Molly, did you date anyone in high school? Mm-hmm. Would you?
I was not doing their laundry.
Yeah. Or the other way around. So it'd be like, wouldn't that be a little weird?
Yeah.
Like a high school kid, like, even if you were in a relationship, just a high school kid, like 17 years old.
I guess so. Like, when you put it in that perspective.
Being like, Molly, I got your underwear out of the laundry and I folded it for her, put it away. I'm
right.
Like, oh, what? Like, you'd think that was a little weird, but anyway. Let's get to two people who actually were in a relationship. Ginny and Harry. Ginny pops out of one of the rooms and asks for a moment with Harry. So Harry goes to her room and they have some time alone. And Harry notes of her room, it's small, kind of tight-spaced, but very bright. She has a large Weird Sisters poster. She has a picture of Gwynog Jones, who's the captain of the all-female professional Quidditch team. And there's a desk overlooking an orchard. So kind of a nice setup for a room, even though it's a little on the smaller side.
Yeah.
But obviously, I guess when you have to bunk up multiple boys in multiple rooms, you have to give the one girl, like,
Her own space.
her own space.
Yeah.
Maybe a little on the smaller side.
Yeah.
It takes a room to hold Fred and George. And then I'm assuming Bill and Charlie always room together. Percy, although, has his own room, doesn't he?
I think so.
I think so.
Percy
Anyway,
is his own person.
that's true. Percy's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Ginny says she's struggled to find the right present for Harry to mark this occasion. And Harry, during this whole encounter, is struggling to find any of the right words.
Nice view.
Yeah, nice view. That's what I'll settle on. Which I like. Ginny selectively ignores whatever he says. Like, I'm going to pass over that. But the gift she ends up giving Harry is a kiss like she's never kissed him before.
Yeah.
To remember her by. That's a gift.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, by the way Harry describes his feelings during this, successful, I think, from Ginny, that he won't soon forget it.
I would say so.
So, okay, Ginny. All right. Well, I suppose the way this ends might interrupt his memories of it. Ron comes through the door and interrupts the moment and kind of kills the moment completely. And Ginny ends up turning her back on Harry, and Harry assumes, like, as tough as she is, she might finally have succumbed to tears. And Harry's like, oh, wow, whatever warmth and fire I was feeling, completely doused.
Yeah.
Completely and 100% doused. Ron's obviously not happy about the situation. He says, dude, you broke up with her? Why are you now kissing her? That seems a little inappropriate. Like, why are you stringing her along? Why are you making her feel some things, giving her hope? And Harry's like, okay, one, I don't think she expects us to get married or anything. I think we understood what that was. And I think we're mutually agreed on the steps forward. She understands where I'm having to go, all of that.
Acting like a typical brother would.
I think so, yeah.
You know, protecting his little sister from getting hurt, from the evil boys, since he is a boy. He knows how boys think.
Well, yeah. I think that's the
the main thing.
Uh-huh.
And then, but terrible wingman. Like, as Harry's best friend, like, you interrupted something that was heartfelt.
So, I guess, would Hermione then be the wing woman?
Yeah.
Because she tries to stop Ron from going in, because she's fully aware
Of what is
going on. I get where Ron's coming from. I would probably not be thrilled about it if I was in his shoes, if I'm being honest. I don't know that I would have barged through the door either. I probably would have had a word with Harry afterwards about it. Be like, dude, what was that?
Right.
Or you could just talk with your sister and be like, what was that? Mm-hmm. Like, do I have to have a talk with Harry? Or, like, what's going on? You could just talk to your actual sister, who is your family, who's also not shy about sharing her opinions on things either.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
could do that too. But
Yeah. I think Ron's protectiveness just kicked in. And
Yeah.
I don't think Ron has a very good filter in those situations.
Ron arguably
You know what
doesn't
I
have a
mean?
very good filter generally.
Yeah. So.
Which we can actually get back to a little later in this chapter of not really thinking about what he's saying.
No.
But Harry ends up promising, like, okay, I will be completely hands-off with Ginny, and that'll be that. Mm-hmm. We get to Harry's birthday dinner. And we get some arrivals for Harry's birthday dinner. Charlie arrives and is immediately taken away to get a haircut by Mollie. Lupin and Tonks and Hagrid all show up. And Mollie does a decent job of cleaning George's ear wound. But the way they describe it is a gaping hole. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry if I'm about to gross people out just talking about anatomy. How does this work? how does this curse work? Is this like a gaping hole where you're seeing in like the inner ear bones? Are you seeing skull? Are you seeing like the ear canal?
Yeah.
Or is this just like a black void?
Oh, yeah.
Because the way they're describing it makes me think black void.
Yeah.
But she might just be describing this poorly.
I think it's just described poor. I don't know.
I would assume it'd just be like, and there's your eardrum, and there's your like... Anyway. So, the setup for the dinner. We get tables lined up in the garden. Purple lanterns in the shape of the number 17 are put up by the twins. Purple and gold streamers from Hermione. Plus, she turns the leaves on the crabapple tree gold.
I love this scene. I'm so glad I got this chapter because I love this scene.
Just the decoration parts of it, or just them coming together to celebrate Harry?
Just them coming to celebrate Harry. Like, I love everything about, I mean, everybody knows. I love everything about the Burrow. I love everything about,
that's true. Yeah.
You know, when they all are there and things are peaceful and happy and, yeah. Like, it's just so pretty. Like, I think of, like, a Midsummer Night's Dream type of, like, scene in terms of...
yeah, especially with these decorations.
Yeah.
They've cleaned up the Burrow a little bit, though. How do you feel about that? Do you like the overgrown version of the Burrow, or do you like the cleaned up, fancy version of the Burrow?
I mean, I'm all about overgrown. So, like, if I could live in, like, a little witch's hut in the middle of nowhere, I would. So
Fair enough. Mollie comes out with the beach ball-sized snitch birthday cake, which is a cool idea. It seems like they've interspersed a lot of magic setup with a lot of, like, literally get your hands dirty type of, like, prep for this wedding and for this birthday. A beach ball-sized snitch birthday cake could not have been easy.
No.
Like, that could not have been an easy endeavor to take on. Also, where do you hide a beach ball-sized snitch?
Yeah.
Like, did she magically enlarge the oven?
Maybe.
Like, I don't know where...
Maybe, like, there's an extension charm, like, on their, like, refrigerator / icebox.
Maybe.
An oven.
Because that's a large birthday cake.
Yeah.
Which I get, because there's a lot of guests, but...
Right.
It's also an awkward shape.
Did they have it, like, special ordered from, like, the bakery somewhere?
Maybe.
So...
Maybe that could have been it. But as the decorations and as the cake's being brought out, Hagrid remembers 6 years ago to the day when he showed up and saw Harry, and he's like, I don't know if you remember, Harry, but 6 years ago today I picked you up. And Harry's like, you know, I don't seem to remember you breaking down the door, telling me I'm a wizard, and giving Dudley a tail. Like, yeah. I don't seem to remember that nothing is very memorable about that moment for me. Which got a couple of laughs. He does, Hagrid, give him a moleskin pouch that is designed to hide objects which only the owner can get out. Hagrid notes it's a fairly rare item, which that's really cool.
Oh,
that's a cool item. Hagrid then leaves to catch up with Charlie and finds out that Norbert is Norberta now. Hermione actually asks, like, how do you know if the dragon is male or female? And Charlie's like, oh, well, females tend to be more vicious. So that's how we go by. I'm like, oh, interesting note. But yes, Norbert is now Norberta. I also will just focus on the fact that early on in book 7, she seems to be laying out some tidbits or some little, I don't want to call them Easter eggs, but like plot points from earlier books. And she's just kind of strewing them about as she goes. So obviously the Norbert mention here, obviously a big plot point. The use of Wingardium Leviosa in the Seven Potters scene, that's obviously a spell that came in handy a couple of times in Chamber of Secrets. So she's just like dotting the book with a couple of old gems to just kind of stimulate that nostalgia point in your brain where you're like, oh, I remember that. I remember them doing that. And
right.
It's kind of a nice little touch.
Oh, yeah. I feel like there's been very few times where anything in these books happens by coincidence, which I think is really cool. You know, like JK did a good job of like being very detailed and bringing things back.
Yeah.
So.
And we'll get to another one of those examples very soon here.
Yeah.
But we do get a visit from Arthur's Patronus, which, for those keeping track, a weasel, which is stunning, and no one could have saw that coming. But
I would have never guessed.
No. It appears after Arthur is delayed getting home from work, and Mollie was getting a little antsy about, like, oh, something must have happened at work or whatever. Obviously, these are interesting times, so if someone's late, then they should be. People are a little on edge.
Get worried.
The Patronus Weasel says that, in Arthur's voice, that the Minister of Magic is coming with Arthur. And that kind of sets everybody on edge of like, why? What must this be for?
Yeah.
This is odd. Tonks and Lupin are like, peace. Happy birthday, Harry. We gotta go. Rufus arrives not long after they disappear, looking older, more grim. And all he really wants is a word with Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Which I think also surprised a lot of people there. They're like, okay, he's coming to probably talk with Harry, right? Nope, Ron and Hermione as well. Arthur directs them into the little sitting room in the Burrow. And we have this sit down about the will of Albus Dumbledore. There's a lot of people with this will that we need to get into. Rufus thought the same. Mm-hmm. He took over a month to examine whatever was left to the trio. And he cites the decree for justifiable confiscation, which gives the Ministry of Magic power to confiscate the contents of a will. Hermione interjects at this point and says, well, that's supposed to stop wizards from passing on dark artifacts, and you're supposed to have really powerful evidence of it. So do you think Albus is passing on, like, dark artifacts, or do you think he dabbled in dark magic or whatever? And Rufus kind of neglects that question and just goes, are you thinking about a career in magical law? Because you're 17 and you're pulling out law on me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of in a mocking way.
Do you, from Rufus's point of view?
Yeah, I read that as like, okay, you're going to get snippy with me, little girl? Like,
I read it as genuine. I think he was somewhat impressed.
Okay.
Like, maybe taken aback. Maybe I should say that. Maybe he was a little taken aback by like, oh, I'm not expecting to get like magical law questions, which are right.
Yeah.
From a 17-year-old. I think he gets snippy later. But this does point him in the direction of like, oh, this is how this is going to go kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you this, definitely puts him on the defensive track early. Well, especially with what Hermione responds, which is, no, I'm hoping to do some good in the world.
Yeah.
Which I think is definitely a shot at the general wizarding government or way of life. Both, I guess. Yeah. Definitely a shot. Mm-hmm. Rufus persists. Again, ignores the comment and continues on. Rufus questions Ron's closeness with Albus. Rufus is not an idiot. Rufus is like, okay, Harry Potter, duh. Hermione, from all accounts, one of the brightest kids at Hogwarts during this stretch. So he's probably thinking logically, if she's one of the smarter kids, Dumbledore could have reasonably had interactions with her on some level. Or at least been aware of her, or at least been, she makes sense as to why he might give a powerful magic item. Ron. Nothing seems to be particularly notable about this one kid.
Poor Ron.
But I'm assuming that's what his thought process
Wembley.
is. Maybe he talked to Slughorn. Was like, Slughorn, what do you got on this kid? I'm sorry, who? Willoughby? I don't know who this Wallenby is. Pronouncing his name 5 times incorrectly in the same conversation. I feel bad for Ron. But realistically, that's probably what Rufus is thinking. It's like, okay, that one makes sense. That one I could see. What?
Right.
This one, explain to me. Explain to me how close you were to Dumbledore. And this is what I was saying with like Ron not exactly thinking.
Yeah.
Because he blurts out, like, I wasn't really that close with him. I barely, like, interacted with him. And Harry's thinking, like, I can't even remember a moment where they were alone together.
Yeah.
Like, even for a second.
Right.
Which is what I brought up a while ago of, like, how much, like, at the funeral for Dumbledore, like, I'm sorry, how many of the kids really do have any kind of...
Right. Well, I mean, yeah.
I mean, if Ron didn't, and he's the chosen one's best friend, like...
Well, I mean, Dumbledore is very, like, omnipresent throughout. I feel like he has, like, a very omnipresent vibe about him. Mm-hmm. I don't think while those two interacted, really. I think he still probably took the time, especially in the last book, like, outside of things, to know Harry's friends.
It's just interesting how Rufus kind of tried to, like, get through the barrier that the trio are starting to put up. But Rufus goes on to say most of Albus's possessions were donated back to Hogwarts. Things like his private library, the magical instruments that he owned and invented, and assorted personal effects were mostly donated back to Hogwarts. However, these three, the last will and testament of Albus, Percival, Wulfric, Brian, Dumbledore. You might recognize that from maybe our intro. We get the official pronouncement of it. To Ronald Bilious Weasley. Bilious, great middle name.
Fantastic.
Solid. A Deluminator, in the hope that he will remember me when he uses it. The Deluminator is a silver cigarette lighter looking thing with the power to suck light from a room as well as to restore that light. It's both very valuable and possibly completely unique. So, again, Rufus is like, why? Why are you getting something, and why is it this? Mm-hmm. Like, what does this mean to you? What could you do with this? And Ron's like, and this is honestly just him being very genuine. Turn off lights, I guess? Like,
a very Ron response.
I mean, it's a fair response.
It is.
And it's genuine. Which, again, a guy like Rufus, who's, every time he gives out one of these, he's looking at that individual, he's
studying them.
They describe him as squinting, specifically. Which I don't know if that's an indicator of, like, legilimen's at use or just him being experienced. Can I figure out if you're lying to me or not?
Yeah.
But I think he's able to tell, like, Ron is being pretty genuine here. He has no idea what this is or why.
Yeah.
So, fair. To Hermione Jean Granger. The Tales of Beetle the Bard. In hope she will find it entertaining and instructive. That, I will give Rufus this. The idea that you're giving... Hermione plays it well with the idea that, oh, well, he knows I liked books, so he gave me a book. But I will give Rufus the idea of, like, this random student was given something when not many other students were given anything. Really, these three only. And the words, find it entertaining and instructive. Instructive. Interesting. How is it exactly instructive?
Right.
And I would bet most of the month and a half that he spent in his office might have been, when he's poring over these at least, because I know he had other work, but when he was poring over this, was probably poring over the book the most. Because the title is in runes, specifically. It's not even in common, basic English, whatever verbiage you want to use, depending on which fandom you want to follow. It's in runes. So he was like, clearly there must be some encoded message. There must be something in here that she might find instructive as to the next steps. And Hermione, again, very coolly says, like, well, if you and the Ministry couldn't find any encoded messages in it in a month, what am I going to do? Like, I probably couldn't find it either.
Yeah.
So it's a very cool answer that's also genuine. And he's like, it's fair logic. Yeah. All right, we'll move on to Harry James Potter. The snitch that he caught in his first Quidditch match as a reminder of the rewards of perseverance and skill. And Rufus questions the snitch and makes the connection to the cake that he saw outside. And Hermione is like, oh my goodness. He's a Quidditch player.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you can figure this one out.
Right. Like, no, there's a message in the cake, Rufus.
Yeah.
Go find it.
Is it in the icing? Did they write something in the icing? Are there runes in the icing? And Rufus gives a massive eye roll and is like, okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
I don't think that. Are you aware that a snitch, you can hide something in there? Are you aware of that, Miss Granger? Mm-hmm. You can hide something in there. And then Hermione, despite herself, is like, oh, they do have flesh memories. And Harry's like, can you not answer a question one time? Like, can you just calm yourself and not have to be the smartest person in the room like one time?
Right.
But flesh memories can identify the first person to lay their hands upon it in case of a disputed capture. So even the maker doesn't touch a snitch. They make it with gloves. It's kept untouched until literally they let it out for the Quidditch match. And then if two people grab the snitch at the same time and there's a disputed, like, oh, I got it, the first person to touch it, it would respond to.
Yeah. Which is cool.
So they get through the flesh memory part of the snitch. And then the trio's like, okay, so we're done. You can leave now. And Rufus is like, well, there's a second bequest. The Sword of Godric Gryffindor. And Rufus immediately starts with, well, it's not exactly Albus's to give. It's an important historical artifact. And as he gets those words out, Hermione interjects once again. It's like, well, it presented itself to Harry in a moment of need and blah, 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 blah. And Rufus is like, Hermione, the sword may present itself to any worthy Gryffindor. That does not make it that person's property. So, no.
It does not belong to him.
It does not belong to Harry. It does not get passed down to Harry. But he then follows up with, did Albus believe that only the Sword of Godric Gryffindor could defeat the heir of Slytherin? Which, albeit, is a little fantastical. Mm-hmm. However, not completely out of the question. I feel like that's a fair jump to make, right?
Right.
Sword of Godric Gryffindor, heir of Slytherin. Could this be the way to defeat him? Like, I don't feel like it's that much of a leap, really.
No, it's not a far stretch at all.
Like, Harry jumps all over him, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, has anyone tried sticking Voldemort with a sword? Like,
yeah,
that should do it. And I'm like, Harry.
Give the man some credit.
He's trying to figure this problem out. He's trying to solve the solution, and clearly he doesn't have many avenues to go as more and more people are succumbing to Voldy's efforts. Yeah, he might be grasping at straws a little bit, but would you rather him not be grasping at straws and be like, all right, I guess this is a losing effort. Let me join up with the winning side here or whatever. Like, I don't get why Harry is so antagonistic here.
Yeah.
But Harry follows up with, is this what you've been doing shut up in your office this entire time? And this is where Rufus was like, okay, I'm tired of deflecting petty comments and immature shots. You're stepping over a line. Because now you're saying that I am not trying. That I am not committed to the anti-Voldy movement. That I am not committed to keeping you safe. That I'm not committed to ending this war. And he's like, that's too far. You can't say that. So much so that both individuals stand, and Rufus points a wand right at Harry's chest, so much so that it singes his shirt. Like a hole right through his shirt. And Rufus says, it's time you learn some respect. I'm not Dumbledore. I'm not letting you get away with all of your insolence and insubordination anymore. Like, someone has got to actually stand up to you.
Yeah.
And Harry responds with, well, it's time you earned that respect. And at this point, Arthur and Mollie rush in to find this scene And Rufus says to Harry, kind of exasperated, we ought to be working together on this. Why are you so against me? And Harry showed him the I must not tell lies scars on the back of his hand. Before we move on from this scene, I'll let Mollie, you give your thoughts, because I have a whole bunch, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a Dan rant, so everybody's going to have to stay with me. But Mollie, before I get on a whole big tangent.
Oh, boy. So, I understand him being very angry with the Ministry. I understand him being very distrustworthy of the Ministry right now, especially with, Voldy's crew infiltrating them. However, Rufus was not the minister when Umbridge was at Hogwarts. So, for him to be still holding on to that, in terms of blaming that on Rufus, I don't think is fair. But I understand that deep down, Harry's been burned by them, and he's just not having it. Mm-hmm. So that's my take.
I agree with you. I also understand. I get Harry's hesitancy to accept Ministry help. And I know I've railed on this. I know I've railed on this before. So bear with me, everybody that's about to listen to this rant. But as you said, Rufus is not the previous minister. He is not Fudge. They are two different individuals. Okay? Why are you treating him as Fudge? If this was Fudge, I get it. Mm-hmm. I totally get it, and I would not have a problem with this at all. Give him sass. Talk back to him. Stand up to him. Point a wand at his chin. Like, whatever. I understand, because Fudge put you through it. He's a politician's politician. Like, he's trying to fudge some... Fudge.
Fudge is trying to fudge.
Cornelius is trying to fudge some things.
No, I think you need to say Fudge is trying to fudge.
Fudge is trying to fudge some things.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Where Rufus is being fairly straightforward and genuine here. He's like, I want to end this. Mm-hmm. What has Rufus done to really say that he's not committed to an anti-Voldy movement? Yes, he's maybe gone a little bit above and beyond and been like, whoa, putting Stan Shunpike in Azkaban might have been overstepping. Well, also, guess what? Stan Shunpike just tried to kill you in the air over Privet Drive. So maybe he wasn't all that wrong. Maybe when he was talking about Death Eater plans in the Leaky Cauldron, maybe he was imperious at that point in time, and maybe he deserved to be off of the streets at that time. Maybe that's legit. Okay. So I will give Harry the fact that Umbridge is still employed. That should not be the case, and that is an egregious oversight by Rufus.
Yeah.
That's fair. I understand that. But let's be real. This is a war with people dying and disappearing regularly. You're going to hold it against the Ministry that they gave you a tough time for a year and a half and have currently continued to employ one awful woman. Who's awful, yes, but it's one woman. You're holding it against them for that? You're telling Rufus to his face that he's not doing enough?
I mean, I get it, though, too. Like, I think Harry has every right, though, to distrust the Ministry in terms of past events and current events that are happening in terms of...
Oh, like the Prophet not releasing everything, and yeah.
Yeah, So I'm kind of, like, torn on this. Like, I'm kind of the in-between person on this.
Let me phrase it this way. We are professionals in our different domains, right? If a 17-year-old kid came up to you and said, you are not doing your job correctly, how happy would you be, Mollie?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't be happy.
I would not be happy at all.
Yeah.
I'd be like, who in the world are you? What have you really done? And I get this is Harry Potter, But Harry Potter has done 6 years worth of fighting dark wizards. Rufus has spent a career, a whole life, doing it. He's lost friends, presumably. He's lost co-workers. He's lost people, too. Not just Harry. Harry seems to think he's the only one to lose anything ever. Dumbledore was the first one to tell him, like, you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Like, I've lost people. I've lost friends. Like, you're not the only person to lose. You have lost. And that's awful. But you're not the only one. To think you're the only one going through this struggle is a little... Like, Rufus calls him out on it. I'm like, oh, I see where you get the pretentious, quote-unquote, chosen one vibe now. You're kind of acting like it.
Yeah.
Like, how about you come down to reality and let's actually try to solve this problem?
Yeah.
Instead of being like, I'm too good for you. I don't need you. I'll do it on my own. And I get that there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes here. But if you're Rufus, if you're coming at this from Rufus, and you're like, I'm actually trying to solve this thing. I'm actually trying to win a war. I have people all around me who I know have been taken over and manipulated and whatever, whether by curses or by just straight up fear. I am in a hornet's nest, and I'm trying to get through it. I would really like your help here, and you're refusing to give it to me based on what? Because of what the previous minister put you through? I'm not fudge.
Yeah, but at the same time, too, like, I just thought of this. Like, Harry also puts most of his trust in the Order.
Yeah.
So why would he try to trust the minister, especially, too, if some of the Order members are leaving right before he even gets there? And, you know, like, because it seems to me like Rufus really just wants to work with Harry and not the whole entire Order.
Well, we don't see him working with Arthur or with Kingsley. Because we know and Tonks, for that matter, all three of them are at the Ministry. Tonks and Kingsley being Aurors that were in his department as the head of the magical law enforcement prior to his promotion. So he's worked with them.
But why doesn't the Order...
I think they do. I think to even bring him to this birthday party, to bring him to the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix now, like, they could have figured out a different location. They could have figured out something else. They thought it was safe enough to bring him here.
Yeah.
I think they trust him. I don't think they trust anybody else in the Ministry, but I think they do trust Rufus, and that he's not fallen to the dark side, let's say.
Yeah.
It's just, for whatever reason, Harry has this hatred of the Ministry of Magic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's too much. Like, you gotta put... Sometimes you might not like somebody, but you gotta put some stuff aside to get something done. Like, I mean, he can help. He's literally in here being like, we ought to help each other.
But Harry is 17 years old.
I know. It's just frustrating to me to be like, who do you think you are? Telling this man that he's not doing his job. Like, you don't know. You're not in the Ministry of Magic. You left that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, and I get, it seems like you spent all this time shut up in your office, which is a quote that he just got, by the way. But you spent all this time shut up in your office poring over a children's book, a cigarette lighter looking thing, and a snitch. You spent all this time looking over 3 little items. First of all, yeah, think about it. If Dumbledore left 3 little items to 3 kids in the midst of a war when he left nothing else, yeah, I would be a little suspicious. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, but at the same time, too, like, if Rufus was really 100% on their side, why is he so skeptical of Dumbledore in these items? Like, a lot of times, you know, the Order just puts their full trust into Dumbledore and is like, hey, whatever he has going on, whatever his plan is, like, we just got to trust it. Where Rufus is like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I'm also on the record on this podcast by saying Dumbledore made mistakes. And he's tried so hard to get Fudge on his side. But when Rufus comes in, he's like, no, I'm good. Why? Again, Rufus does not equal Fudge. You tried to get Fudge on the same page. Rufus is actually like, no, let's work together. Let's figure this out. And Dumbledore's like, we're good. I'm sorry, what? Maybe if you were a little bit more open to having Rufus come in, and I'm not talking about the Horcrux thing.
Yeah.
That's a separate thing that should be more kept secret.
Right.
But in the general, like, hey, we're moving pieces over here, we're worried about this in the, like, whatever, the western part of Britain, or there's a movement here, like, that kind of stuff, yeah, work together on that. That could really help you out.
Yeah.
Like, Dumbledore being like, hey, Rufus, I just heard there's movement of giants from, like, Liverpool into Glasgow, or whatever. Like, you might want to check on that. Okay, bye. Great. He can then action on that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand why they had to be separate. So I think that's a Dumbledore problem.
It might be. The thing is we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know the backstory between Rufus and Dumbledore and why Dumbledore is just like, meh, I'm good.
I was also talking about where the Order seems a little leaderless now. Because they, like you said, they put so much stock in Dumbledore. Well, with Dumbledore gone, and then after the Seven Potters scene, your next one in was Moody. Well, now Moody is gone.
Yeah.
So I suppose now the head of the Order of the Phoenix might be Kingsley, but Kingsley's got a pretty big job on his own.
I would almost say Lupin.
Maybe, but he's also got a big job.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's really a leader right now. And I'm just posing this question. I don't know that I wholly believe that this is a plausible solution, for the record, before people like jump down my throat about it.
Dan, they'll jump down your throat.
I'm just throwing out. If Dumbledore had trusted Rufus a little bit more with coordinating a war against Voldy, could Rufus have stepped into that head of the Order of the Phoenix? I know it's an interesting question.
That's a very interesting question.
That I just thought of off the top of my head.
I mean, I want to say no, but... just to go with the history of this podcast.
No.
To go with the history of this podcast, to just shoot down.
Be against me specifically. Fair
Yes.
enough. It's just a thought that I just had of like, well, if it's leaderless, I mean, and the Minister of Magic is generally with you in the idea of Voldy's got to go. Mm-hmm. Like, why wouldn't he be a possible solution?
Yeah, I think either Kingsley or Lupin's going to step into that role. Lupin more specifically, I feel.
Really? You're on the Lupin.
I always saw Lupin as like the next one.
This would be an interesting poll.
Yeah, it would be.
With Dumbledore gone, who would you have as the next leader of the Order of the Phoenix?
Yeah. Lupin,
Kingsley, or Rufus. This is another...
Or Mr. Weasley.
Or Arthur, or Mollie.
Ooh. I like that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I feel like this is a poll that I am going to get hammered.
More the reason to do it, Dan.
Yeah, right? For whatever reason, people aren't on my side with the whole, can you help out the Ministry just a little bit here? Just a little bit.
No.
People don't seem to like that opinion. But anyway, I tried. Let us know. We just had a big discussion about the Rufus-Harry interaction there as he read the contents of the will to him. Let us know what your thoughts are on that.
We would love to hear them.
I want to hear all of them, even the ones that disagree with me. That's okay.
Mostly the ones that disagree with you.
I will shout them out either way. I'm not biased. It's fine. But let us know. Let us know your thoughts, please. let us know on Twitter, on Instagram, and comment on this episode on Spotify. I am very interested to hear your thoughts on all of this, so let us know. Don't be shy. Now, we get to the aftermath of this whole thing. And Rufus has left. The objects get passed around the tables. Everybody gets a look at them, sees what they maybe can impart from them, why Dumbledore would have given these objects and such and such. Harry ends up filling the moleskin that Hagrid gave him with the Marauder's map, shard of Sirius's mirror, which, wonderful. You're starting to finally use that now, a book and a half too late. Congratulations. And RAB's locket. Just a little salty about that. That's fine. So the trio then discuss the items themselves. Once the party has died down, they're back in their rooms. Hermione has snuck out into the boys' room. The trio discuss the items that Dumbledore left, and Harry recalls catching the snitch not in his hand, but in his mouth. Mm-hmm. So his idea is, I don't know, kiss it.
Put it to his lips.
Put it to his lips, something. And suddenly writing appears on the snitch. And the writing says, "I open at the close."
That got me.
Yeah?
That gets me every time.
Just like, do you get transported back to you reading this for the first time and being like, what does this mean? Like, were you going with the trio being like, what could "I open at the close" possibly mean? Well, does it open the... Like, maybe if I say it a certain way or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, when I first read it, I was like, what? With these items. I was like angry almost. Like,
oh, yeah.
You know, like...
No, I get that.
What the heck? Why would he leave these?
The only thing that you interpret can help, you can't have.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is ironic, because Harry's like, have you tried stabbing Voldy with a sword? Yet the one he wanted the most was the sword, you hypocrite. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
The one that perked your interest the more, you were like, oh, you're going to stab him with it?
Right.
Like, you wanted it. You know you wanted it. Stop lying. Sorry, I'm done now. We'll move on.
I know, Dan. It's okay. It gets me every time I read that. I open at the close.
It's a great line because it's a riddle that's mysterious enough to where if you don't know, you don't know. But if you know,
yeah,
it's great.
Yep.
We know, but we're not going to tell you here. So
exactly. We'll talk more about it.
What that could possibly mean.
Yeah.
The Tales of the Beetle of the Bard, which is, oddly enough, a book that Ron has read and that Hermione has not. They call it unprecedented, which is just great. Ron references several of the stories in the book, including The Fountain of Fair Fortune, The Wizard and the Hopping Pot, and I think our personal favorite, Babbity Rabbity and Her Cackling Stump.
Yep.
Just a great title.
Fantastic.
I do like Rupert Grint's delivery of this in the movie where he's like, "Come on, Babbity Rabbity? No, nobody?
No,
all right,
no.
All right."
Side note, I do very much enjoy the actor that plays Rufus.
Oh, he's great in the movie.
I love him.
He delivers his lines so well. Obviously, he's great. We wanted to incorporate him and his voice in the intro because he delivers the lines so well, and he does do a really good job. And it's not because I'm biased towards him.
Are you gonna have a whole thing just like you did with Crouch?
Crouch, apparently Trelawney, yes. Anyway, we get an interesting couple of mentions. We get a Snow White and a Cinderella mention in this. And Ron's like, what's Cinderella, an illness? Sounds like an illness. That's fair. With them poring over the objects and then them deciding, hey, we should probably get to bed because it's kind of a big day tomorrow. We'll call it a night. So that's how the chapter ends. And like I said, there was a lot in this chapter to dissect, and we still have more to dissect when we get to the spoiler section. But I liked this chapter a lot. I thought it was really, really cool, despite me getting so upset Which is great. Just me getting upset means that there's depth to the writing beyond what's just written there.
Yeah.
So it's a testament to the writing being done. So kudos on that. I thought it was a really fascinating chapter. And
it's a great chapter.
It's cool to come back to after so long, because I can't remember the last time I read this book. So
yeah, I mean, I caught myself just like speed reading through it again, just like when I first got it.
That page turning like syndrome is a real thing where you're like, oh, I gotta keep going.
Yeah, and then I was like, wait, I have to slow down because I actually have to like
take it in,
things apart.
But it took me almost 2 hours to like,
oh yeah,
read, digest, come up with like thoughts beyond this, and then actually like put it all into an outline form, because obviously, you know, I try to prep for this podcast, even though it doesn't seem like it sometimes. But yeah, it was a while for this one.
Yeah.
And part of it was like my random tangents, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, which is like, I wonder what kind of hole it actually is in George's head. Like,
Dan, I find nothing wrong with random tangents.
Fair enough. Maybe we'll get into some in the spoiler section. Who knows? But let's take a break, get to the break sound, and we will be right back with the spoiler section. Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf.
All right, so we're back with the spoiler section of Chapter 7, The Will of Albus Dumbledore. So, really quickly, I'll say that there's obviously one interesting little tidbit. Spoiler, it's a little mini one, but it is interesting, where as Harry's arguing with Ron about his interactions with Ginny, Harry mentions, like, well, it's not like she expects us to get married or anything. Well,
about that.
And I'm sure at this point in time, yeah, she's probably not thinking about marriage. I hate to tell you this, Harry. You two get married.
You do.
And it's interesting to see Harry and Ginny through this chapter and the next one that we'll get to, which you'll be on, where Harry keeps looking at Ginny and is like, wow, she is amazing. Like, she is something.
Great.
Spoiler alert, they get married. So
they do. Yep.
That happens. Also, spoiler alert, I promised I wouldn't rehash this, but I'm already going to rehash this right out the gate.
It's okay, Dan.
I literally, 3 minutes ago said I wouldn't rehash this, but here I go. Also, spoiler alert, Harry, who's so anti-ministry, guess what he ends up doing in his later life? Working for the Ministry of Magic.
Working for the Ministry.
Just saying.
Yeah. And to your credit, Dan, I was trying to defend those who do not agree with you. But in this situation, I agree with you.
Oh, okay.
I think Harry was a little too
aggressive.
Too aggressive. There.
You know what? I would like to believe that most people are probably going to disagree with me here, but in their heart of hearts, when they really think about it,
yes,
they'll agree with me. I think so.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk about the will and its contents, because they're fairly interesting. Obviously, they all have a role to play here in this book going forward. And the Deluminator. We talked a little bit in the non-spoiler about how she has dropped some little tidbits and Easter eggs and moments from the past throughout this book so far. The Deluminator is another one of those.
So cool.
And this obviously plays a much larger role than just, let's say, the spell Wingardium Leviosa or whatever. But you might not recognize it. She was clever. Mm-hmm. Because she changed the name on us.
Yeah.
She used it before in book 1, chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived, as the put outer, which put out all the lights on Privet Drive so that Dumbledore can smoothly, incognito, make his way up to the Dursleys. So she changed it, but it's the same thing. And obviously it plays quite the role with Ron. The trio talks about the idea that, well, Dumbledore couldn't plainly say what these items were for in the will because he knew it was going to get looked over. So they assume these are just like throwaway lines, but
they're not.
Molly, we're here to dissect and overanalyze. So we are going to dissect and overanalyze these. Here's my 2 cents on it. I think the idea of, in the hope that he will remember me when he uses it, doesn't refer to him. I don't think he expects Ron to think of Dumbledore when he uses it, but hope that he will remember, I think, is the key.
I get what you're saying, yeah.
Because what ultimately ends up happening with the Deluminator is he's flicking it in some random, and he's thinking of Hermione, and it ends up transporting him to wherever Hermione is. Which we can get into that magic when we get there, because that's
so cool.
Unreal magic. Unbelievable. But I think that was the little hint that Dumbledore put in here. It's like, I don't expect him to remember me, but remembering is the part.
Right.
Think of someone while using this.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, we could play it this way too. If he did think of Dumbledore, what would happen? Does he get transported to, the headmaster's office in front of the portrait of Dumbledore?
White Tomb.
Or the tomb.
Where the wand is.
Yeah. And was that Dumbledore's true intention? Of come talk to me. I can fill you in on some stuff.
Right.
Oh, you misused it, but it still worked out, so everything's fine.
Yeah.
Not how I thought this would work.
Yeah.
It still worked.
Yeah.
Maybe he was being legit. Remember me when you use this, and then I can help you out later.
Right, exactly. I still like the idea that it would transport him to the tomb, and then he gets the wand, and then they have all 3 Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Because then there's the book.
I think maybe that's true too. Maybe I'm overanalyzing this, and it literally is, remember me, and I will help you out.
Yeah. I think it's both.
So let's continue overanalyzing things.
Agreed.
The Tales of Beetle the Bard, in the hope that she will find it entertaining and instructive. I think this one's much more straightforward.
Yes.
Entertaining, obviously. They're stories. Yay. The instructive part. I mean, this is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So Hermione's got to sift through all of these stories and figure out which one might be useful to their journey. Again, jumping...
Babbity-rabbity.
Babbity-rabbity. Yep, that's it. Jumping ahead a couple of steps, Babbity-rabbity comes back later in this cool artistic form. And we get to see the cackling stump in all of its glory.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be a great twist?
Yes.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Babbity-rabbity, come on. Who doesn't know Babbity-rabbity?
Exactly. HBO, we got ideas.
The Tale of the Three Brothers is the story that ends up being the important one to their journey, which obviously features the Hallows. And the Hallows start getting kicked up a notch here and in the next chapter, because we'll get another reference to it in the next chapter. But, I mean, I think those instructions are actually fairly straightforward.
Yes.
The Snitch, as a reminder of the rewards of perseverance and skill.
When I was rereading it for this, all this stuff kind of, hit me at once. And, it just got me. First of all, that line, I open at the close with the snitch. Oh, yeah. Thinking about what ends up happening with the Resurrection Stone before Harry, that's just powerful in itself. But at the same time, too, it's kind of funny, I don't know, maybe I'm being way more profound than I need to be, but, I thought it was really cool, thinking about the fact that Harry has been a seeker, and now he is seeking in his real life for all of these items and everything that he has to hunt down. It's interesting that it's, he's a seeker in the game, and now he's a seeker in life for these items, for this journey that he has to have perseverance for.
I like that. No, I like that a lot. So the reward that he gets at the end of all of this perseverance to get through all of the trials that essentially the Horcruxes present, and the skill needed to get through all of those trials, his reward is seeing his family again.
Right.
Family being not just Lily and James, but Remus at this point and Sirius.
Yeah.
And finally being able to rest.
Yeah.
And having it be over. Or at least so
and
he
the
thinks.
game is over. Like,
Yeah.
I love that parallel.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
Right. Because you catch the snitch, the game's over.
No, I think you nailed it.
Open the snitch, the game's over.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's a perfect interpretation of it. So I think the trio interprets these throwaway lines as throwaway lines when I think, in fact, Dumbledore was being fairly... But this is another case of, well, if you know, you know.
Right.
And if you don't know, you're not going to know.
Right.
That being said, Rufus did kind of nail it on the head with, like, Hermione, I know nothing is written in the icing on the snitch cake. However, did you know something can be in the actual snitch? He hit that right on the head.
Right.
He just couldn't figure out the way to get in it.
Not a stupid man.
Which he wasn't ever going to. Even if he did figure out how to do it, I mean, what's he going to do? Like, force it into Harry's mouth or something like that? Like, kinda, yeah. Kiss it? Kiss it? Like, what's he going to do there? So, I mean, he was running low on options at that
Now
point.
I would take Harry's side of Rufus.
Arthur and Mollie just come in like, what are you doing?
That would be gold. Again, HBO, contact us for
Yeah,
more
right.
ideas.
Mollie and I would love to work on your bloopers specifically. We will script them out specifically how we want them done. Oh, man.
Oh, yes.
That's all I had for the spoilers. Do you have anything else that you wanted to kind of dip into?
No, that's all I got.
Yeah, we'll keep the spoiler section short since we went so long on the non. So, again, thank you all for listening. Again, please comment with all of your thoughts on everything going on in this chapter and the Rufus-Harry argument. And we want to hear all of the thoughts. And we want to debate them on future episodes again. So let us know. With that, we will wrap it up here. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hogwarts a Pod.